Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Afternoons with the Ambassador. And we are back with our weekly um, review of Babylon 5 Season 1. Obviously, this will be going beyond Season 1, but we're still on Season 1. And today we're going to be talking about the episode TKO. And to the chat, everybody that's popping in, Dave G Sound at Superior Hero Reviews. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And as always, I've got my two good friends here, Mountains of Elysium and author and Dr. Adega Outlaw. Gentlemen, thank you for being here once again. How y'all doing today?
Always a pleasure.
And thanks once again for inviting us on.
You're welcome. Well, these streams would not be anything without the both of you here to add your perspective about Babylon 5 and everything that pertains to it. And this is an interesting episode, as the description says. It deals with matters of the hand and matters of the heart. So, just to give a brief synopsis on this one, we've got two different storylines going on in this one dealing with Garibaldi and another one dealing with our good Russian lady Susan Ivanova. And this episode and everything, the title is a bit deceptive, but not deliberately. And gentlemen, I open the floor. Where do you want to begin with this episode?
Well, for me, we were talking beforehand, and the Susan Ivanova story is pretty powerful. When Rabbi Koslov said to her, "Unless you can forgive, you can't mourn. Unless you can mourn, you can't let go of pain." And Susan is clearly carrying around a lot of pain, and that is one that hits home to me because, I've lost both my parents. One, I was able to deal with. Another, yes, I'm carrying around pain, and this is one that hits home to me. And yeah, it's to learn to forgive, and forgiveness is a big point in both plots.
Actually. Yeah, very true. Because one's dealing with the loss of a family member, the other one's dealing with the loss of a career in the terms of Walker Smith and everything, because this is a guy that was a very big name boxer, I'm guessing, or mixed martial artist, or whatever the case may be. And he basically gets messed over, and he loses his title shot. So he's trying to get that streak. He's trying to get his reputation back. So...
I actually didn't realize that Walker Smith is the real name of Sugar Ray Leonard.
Really?
Of the boxer. That was
Sugar. It's not Sugar Ray Leonard. It was Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray Robinson. That was it. Sorry.
Yeah. But either way, he was a boxer, and in the story for Babylon 5, it was a boxer as well.
Okay. So.
Now, it's interesting for me to learn some of the Jewish traditions and things if they were presented correctly in the show. But for this one, I was more interested in two things. One has to deal with Sinclair and how he shows his religious caste side.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, now, a lot of people think that they derived the name out of ether for the Shorin. Before World War II, might have even been before World War I. I don't have my dates right. But there was a Shaolin. You guys know it's the Chinese martial arts for the Kung Fu. Well, one of their grand masters, a Shaolin master, decided he was going to go to, Japan and teach them. Well, the Japanese, in their language, they don't have L's. So it was changed to Shorin, Shorinji Kempo. And that's what I learned, is how to do the Japanese version of Kung Fu. So the Shorin actually is a real name. Some of the people who were doing the trivia and stuff thought it was made up, but no, it matches an actual martial art. And it is derived from the original Chinese Kung Fu.
Interesting. Okay. I honestly was not aware of that, so thank you for that bit of cultural knowledge, Adega. I appreciate it. So,
Not a problem. I love this stuff.
well, and I'm a bit of a I'm not sure what the term would be. I'm a fan of Oriental culture, Japanese, Chinese culture. So, anytime I learn something like this, I'm like, ooh, I learned something new. Hence the reason why I like the third Mummy movie, which I've gotten some shade about thrown at me about. Anyway.
We all have.
Oh, you
guilty
got it
pleasures.
good too.
Yeah, well, there's no accounting for taste. My taste is good, everybody else's stinks. Anyway, back to the episode. This one, I kind of focused in on Ivanova's story in a lot of ways. And fun fact about the actor who played her uncle Yussel, he actually had a couple of cameo appearances on Star Trek TNG. And if anybody knows this or knows the role that he played and everything, sound off by all means. If you don't, that's okay. I can tell you.
I believe he was Worf's foster father or adopted father in the
Very
Penn
good.
trilogy.
Yep. Yeah. I can't remember Theodore. I can't remember the guy's last name, but the first name was Theodore. I remember that much. Yeah, she got it. And everything. He was Worf's foster father. And everything. And if I'm not mistaken, Worf's parents were Russian in TNG as well. So he had a running streak and everything of playing Russian characters, which he did a very good job of. I won't lie.
I believe he was actually raised in Russia. Now that could have been the character, but when I was
That's
looking through the Lurker's Guide, it mentioned him as either being raised in Russia. Now, I wasn't sure, was it referring to the character or the actor?
The character and a Theodore Kozlov, or not Theodore Kozlov, but Rabbi Kozlov. I'm pretty sure he was Russian. Anything, and because not the actor has a very distinct Russian or maybe even Ukrainian accent and everything. Even though there is a bit of a differentiation between the two.
Yeah, it's not forced at all either. You can tell.
No, it's not. It's very natural and everything. And honestly, it is very difficult unless you have a very good dialect coach to impersonate a Russian accent and everything. So honestly, Ivanova Susan's story for me was not that Walker Smith's story wasn't interesting in the episode, but that whole situation surrounding her for me was the interesting part of the episode. And, it's something that we all can relate to one degree or another because we have all had to deal with grief in our lives to one extreme or another in different situations. And for Susan, I mean, we get the backstory from Kozlov and everything to Sinclair and everything. And the nice thing is they followed that up very nicely in the TV movie and everything in the beginning when you have the cameo by Claudia Christian and everything with or Susan Vava with her brother Ganya and everything. He does, in fact, die during the Minbari War. And, of course, you've got Susan's mother who has committed suicide a year before that. And then, of course, a few years later, we don't know. Well, we figure it's at least 10 years because in the intro to the show, it says the station was built 10 years after the end of the Minbari War. So in the span of maybe 15 years, Ivanova has lost the three most important people, her immediate family, one of which she was extremely estranged from, one that was died and everything apart from her. And then, of course, her mother commits suicide, but her mother was driven to it. Let's just be candid here. And there's a lot of conflicting feelings within Ivanova, and Kozlov sees that. And that's why he does go to Sinclair and asks for her to have a leave of absence. And then, of course, you've got her reaction when they're saying they're having dinner. And that, honestly, to me, was a very natural reaction, at least from my perspective. I don't know what you gentlemen think.
No, I'd agree. And it's the first time like Susan has almost been an ice queen in many ways, though losing her temper on occasion. But she broke down. And I think it's because her uncle did the right thing and he did it out of love. And
Yes.
I really just mentioned that for a religious character in science fiction at that time or these days, it is really refreshing to see him played as just a really good, caring character
Yes.
while not dismissing his own belief system, which does seem to happen. That you're either a good person who has a false belief or your religious belief will turn you crazy. That did not happen here.
No.
And did everything out of genuine. He said, I am a Jew, I'm a Russian Jew. He said, it's my job to meddle. I'm a rabbi. And I love that,
Yes.
that he cared for her so much, he just went to the station commander. Not, and
Well,
I think
and here's the thing. Go ahead.
I was just saying that he always.
Well, and here's the.
Oh, no, you
Light
jump
it
ahead
out.
there.
TKO.
Go ahead, Mountains, please. By all means.
No, I was just saying that it just showed that he was more than just her religious leader. He was family.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. Naturally or normally speaking, in real life, a rabbi would meddle to that degree. Now, I'm not going to claim to be the greatest expert on Jewish culture or what have you, but fortunately, due to my seminary education and everything, I've had the opportunity to sit down and talk with rabbis from time to time. And I've had the opportunity to say, how much of a role does a rabbi play in the day-to-day life of a Jewish person? And they have told me and everything, even though I'm what they call a goyim, a Gentile. A rabbi does play an important part in the day-to-day life, and also during important or traumatic occasions in a person's life. And I like the fact that you had the ceremony, the Shiva ceremony that was, to my understanding, portrayed accurately. I mean, the only change that they made and everything was when Ivanova read that passage from the Torah, and she read it in English instead of Hebrew so that Sinclair could understand her. Not only that, I imagined Claudia Christensen wasn't as good with Jewish pronunciation as maybe they would have liked her to have been, so I think that was a nice out and everything for that particular moment and everything, because not everybody's had the opportunity like myself to study ancient biblical Hebrew and be able to pronounce it with a certain degree of accuracy. And I know I won't go into it here unless y'all really want me to.
I struggle with English, so that's understandable.
So, Daggy, you've been kind of quiet and everything. Anything you want to comment on from the episode or anything, or what have you?
Not at this point. No, I'm just, kicking back, letting you guys do your thing. I mean, I've got a few things, but nothing to bring up just yet.
Okay. Well, in terms of the other story with Walker Smith, and this is not me trying to be culturally relevant at the moment and everything, considering what's going on in the real world or out there in the world period. I find it interesting that you have a man of color, we'll put it that way and leave it there, who's trying to go into a martial arts tournament, and one in which humans do not or are not necessarily welcome. And I find that to be somewhat interesting and everything in terms of the commentary that could be made on our current culture and everything, our culture of the past, especially within the U.S. And honestly, I think this was a very good attempt and everything to address a situation like this. Although this is something that has been brought up before in terms of anti-alien sentiment in terms of extraterrestrial alien, anti-alien extraterrestrial sentiment in terms of Babylon 5. And in this case, you've got a group of aliens who are discriminating against a human. And I found that to be actually not necessarily, I won't say comical, but I found it to be somewhat apt and everything on the part of the writers and everything and the director and everything for this episode. So, gentlemen, your thoughts on any of that?
Well, I did notice
oh,
the same thing, that there tends to be, and we can see it nowadays, pretty much throughout our whole history, a type of, there's the groups in our society that have the reverence. And I talked to you just a moment ago about knowing martial arts. And when, you know, in most martial arts, you go to the dojo, you give your greetings to, if it's a picture of a master, if it's a slogan or whatever it is, you give your reverence to them, you give your reverence to the practice mat and to the people that you're working with. The other thing is, there's also those in our society that have no reverence at all.
Yeah.
And when Earth became a spacefaring, or at least jump gate capable group, immediately they started throwing their weight around. And I could imagine all these aliens, well, yeah, they're full of themselves because they beat the Dilgar. They're spreading like crazy ants throughout the universe, pun intended. I imagine they would feel awful threatened that the things that they keep sacred, even if it is a martial arts meet, you know, like the Muay Thai, what they call it, the Muay Thai there, but like the Muay Thai, where it is a very respected martial arts, even though it's extremely brutal, even, you know, in South Asia where the Muay Thai actually takes place. But there's an amount of respect and reverence that these aliens had for it, and the humans, new on the block, wanting to put their nose into everything, step in, and I would imagine not because of any prejudice towards a race, but more of a anger for the lack of reverence, especially when Walker first came in and just said, without any respect to their traditions or anything, who do I talk to? Hey, old man, I want to speak to the boss. You know, it was insulting in so many different ways to these people who respected it almost like a religion. And even a lot of martial arts are the exact same way.
Yes, they are. Very true.
Yeah. And
well, I mean,
oh, sorry, I was.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The minute that Walker, when someone took him under his wing and showed him, look, you have to show respect for this. This is not, and Garibaldi also spoke to him. This is not just a cage fight. This means something to these people. It's more than just a fight. And the minute Walker almost himself understood that, he was accepted because the aliens were not prejudiced towards him. It was prejudiced towards his lack of respect. Because the alien who tried to assassinate him was, I was just reading back through it, his race have only achieved interstellar travel relatively recently, but they're seen as low on the pecking order. But they were already accepted into the Muay Thai, which meant that humans weren't showing respect, were arrogant, and were not welcome because of that arrogance, because they weren't seeing the Muay Thai as equals. They were seeing as something to be conquered, used to move on to better things. It was only when we accepted them as culture, accepted a culture, and was welcomed.
Part of that,
I think I said it to. Oh, sorry, Diego.
No. I didn't want to interrupt you. I thought you were done. Part of that too, the greeting that he uses when he finally gets accepted, and it's something that the Grand Master says too. Who is the bravest of the brave of your species, of your race? It wasn't like in our boxing or our mixed martial arts, who's the tough one? Who could handle the punch? Who can make the throw? It's who has the heart to represent your entire species.
Yeah, very true.
It was a reverence for the character of both the Muay Thai as well as the persons participating in it.
Yeah, very true. Well, you know, we do see this everything. To go off topic for just a minute, in some of the martial arts movies and everything from like the 70s and particularly the 80s in particular, I know it's campy, I know it's cheesy, but it's a movie I love, Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme. You get an image of that reference, even though this is something that obviously is bet on. There's a lot of betting and so on and gambling and what have you. But you
That
do
was
get
based on the real deal, you know that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do know
Okay.
that. Everything Frank Dukes and everything who Van Damme portrayed. Yeah, I know that was based on the real thing. And I think the fact that they do pay attention to the formal nature of the tournament, of how the competitors interact with one another and so on, I think was a very nice touch and everything for that movie. And you get a bit of that in this episode and everything. This is almost like a callback or a love letter to those martial arts tournament movies that were so prominent in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s especially. And I think the fact that once Walker realizes, hey, I'm kind of stepping on toes here, I'm showing a lot of disrespect, and you have that one alien named Caliban and everything who's kind of his guide and everything, saying, hey, this is how you need to behave. This isn't like when you're on Earth dealing with the Syndicate or the Corp or whatever and everything, the corporation, wherever the corporation is. For aliens who are in the Mutai, this is a matter of honor, it is a matter of respect, and to a degree, reverence and everything. Because when there's a phrase I like, you do not truly know a person until you fight them. I know it may seem cliche, but I think there is truth to it. And I think there is truth to it, particularly in this episode, because once Walker is there in the ring with Gior, and he's going toe-to-toe with this guy, and he's holding his own, even though both of them are exhausted by the end of the match. The crowd is starting to come around to Walker's side, and they're starting to chant and everything. Garibaldi asks the alien Caliban, what are they chanting? And Caliban says they're calling him Greatheart. Even though they're aliens, they have come to respect this human who has come into the ring, who has shown respect after a bit of coaching and everything. And even though it ends in a draw, they both walk out with their heads high. And they both walk out respecting one another and understanding one another as well, I think, because as I just said, you don't know a person until you've fought them. And I think in that fight, the two of them got to know each other very, very well. So, gentlemen, any thoughts on any of that or anything in particular?
I was actually just thinking from those few episodes ago, I mentioned this to you, from Believers, the On-Team.
Yeah.
Where they do not show emotion outside of their family or their immediate circle. Mm-hmm. And I think it was unintentional, but when at the very end, when Walker was accepted, now your people can fight in the Mutai, he had a big smile on his face. It was almost as if, you're one of us, you're my family, I can show emotion in front of you.
Yeah.
And just as a bit of world building, I know it was on, I found that was a powerful mistake, that it was by accepting others' culture, by that you can find acceptance, find common ground, and work well. I'm sorry, I was just blown away by it as a mistake. I just noticed it in the past rewatch.
Well, and here's a face I haven't seen in a very long time, Bionic Belly Button. Greetings. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to see you. So, but yeah, the thing about this episode is it's all about, in a lot of ways, it's about either gaining or reinstilling a level of respect in oneself or to someone that you're related to. Because for Walker, it was reinstilling respect in his own self and everything, because he had lost so much because of the whole scandal around what had happened to him when he was trying to go up for the title and everything in the boxing match or whatever it may be and everything. there on Earth, and he's gone out into the stars to try and gain respect. Hey, Bionic, it's okay. These things happen. Glad to see you. Glad you're here. So, the other, and in terms of respect for Ivanova, it's trying to reconcile her relationship with her late father, because she felt like her father didn't respect her. He didn't respect her decisions to go into Earth Force, when in fact he had nothing but respect for her. And even though he realized he made a lot of mistakes, he made a lot of errors and everything in how he raised Susan, he really did love his daughter. And I think that was the message that Rabbi Kozlov was trying to bring to Ivanova. Your father did hold resentment towards you, but eventually, over time, he did come to respect you, and he did, in fact, love you, even if you didn't believe that he did. And I think that is a very important message that is spoken in this episode of, you have to have respect for yourself, but you also need to realize that even though there may be people around, there may be someone in your life that doesn't seemingly respect you, ultimately, deep down, they do, even if they don't know how to express it. And honestly, that's another important part of this episode, in realizing the fact that you're going to have disagreements with family members. You're going to butt heads with family members, but deep down, they're still going to love you regardless of whatever issue you're butting heads over. But the sad thing was, for Ivanova, she didn't really get a chance to know that from her father, even though he said it to her just before his end, when he said that a father should also show his daughter or his child love. And he didn't as much as he should have. And to the chat, Loki and Mac, Trey, good to see you both. Thank you for being here, guys. I hope you're doing well. Loki, I really enjoyed the stream this morning, even though I gave you and Speaker a little bit of grief. Great episode, great stream, guys. And the 80s should be something that's talked about more often. I'm glad y'all took some time to do so. Anyway, fellas, anything else or anything?
I suppose the story that brought Ivanova around, of her father defending her to her hero who humiliated her in public. I thought that was a lovely story.
Yeah.
And I suppose there was two other things, if you want to talk about that for a moment, but there was two other kind of more humorous sides after.
Yeah, go for it, by all means.
It was the book Susan was reading at the very beginning, the Harlan Ellison book, was a fictitious book. And it was placed in the episode, so people would go crazy looking for a book that didn't exist. It was Harlan Ellison worked on the show, and I think himself and Jim thought that would be funny.
Yeah, he was a conceptual consultant and everything for the episode, because, as I understand, because I'm not super familiar with Harlan Ellison, and that's something to my great disdain, I will admit. He is a very prolific and very prominent science fiction writer, and he's been a consultant, I imagine, on several shows aside from Babylon 5. So
he actually acts in one of the episodes coming up in season 2.
Does he?
He's
the
voice of the artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay.
It was turned off because they said he was switched off and not listened to because he was crazy.
Oh yeah, that episode. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to season 2. Yeah, honestly, go ahead.
I was saying the other one was the meal that Walker and Garibaldi shared at the start was the Zune burgers.
Yeah.
It was, when I kind of dug into it, I said there mustn't be much in this, but it actually does a bit of world building for the Babylon 5 setting. That on Earth, it's all healthy food. Greasy food is basically outlawed, and it's all guilt-free, fat-free, healthy, alternatives, and the restaurant they were talking about was called in this series was it arterial blockage, and their motto was screw guilt, where they said the dirtiest, worst food possible, and it was set which was the greasy burgers. And the joke is the owners all died. All the patrons were dying from heart problems because their arteries were blocked by the food they were eating. And I just thought that was just a funny aside in it, because Dugout in Babylon 5 had some of those from the arterial blockage restaurant chain.
It's off story, but kind of related. It started a long time ago. There was this little kid, and I had this guy who worked at a donut shop, and he would come in on Saturdays and bring in donuts. So I'd leave them out for all my patients so they could pick up donuts and have them. And this little girl, she was 5 years old. Long story about her I won't get into. But one day, the donut guy didn't come in. She didn't have a donut, and she threw fits. So I started bringing donuts every Saturday, even though the guy, whether or not he was there, I'd always make sure there was donuts. And people were asking me, okay, you're all about healthy this, healthy that, all of this. Why do you have donuts? And I says, did that donut make you smile? Yes. I said, it's done its job. So having a completely healthy lifestyle, I think, loses out on some of the aspects that actually make you healthy. Every once in a while, you have to have something that brings joy to you, whether it be a piece of fudge, a donut, some ice cream, or in Loki's case, a very, very well burnt steak. Some of those things you just got to have.
Yeah. And honestly, for me, it's medium or medium well, or it's nothing.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Loki made something in the chat.
I saw. We will ignore that comment. Well, and here's the interesting thing. There's actually a movie, I don't know if either one of you, Data, you might be, Mountains, I'm not sure if you are, that does deal with a society in the future where all bad food is outlawed or illegal.
Demolition Man, I believe.
You get the gold star in the cookie. Yes, Demolition Man. I have got to review that movie. Might even do a watch party for that movie at some point. Demolition Man, Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Sandra Bullock.
I love that movie. It's brilliant.
I know. The guy that played Otho from Beetlejuice and everything. Oh, and of course, Dennis Leary. One of the most profane comedians from the 1990s. Dennis freaking Leary is a guy named Edgar Friendly. Edgar Friendly. Isn't there a job you're supposed to do? Isn't there someone you're supposed to kill?
Yeah.
Loki. We need to do a watch party for that one. My channel. Anyways, back up. Okay, we've gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but it's a good rabbit hole.
No, but it was that thing where they were sitting on the side of the rink, and he grabbed that fried worm and said, "This is good," until Garibaldi told him what it was. Well, if it's good, eat the dang thing. It's not going to kill you. So what if it's a fried worm? Made Garibaldi smile, so it was healthy.
Yeah.
I was learning that myself when I went to visit my wife's family in Ecuador. All new foods, and they said, you know what? I don't care what it is. If it tastes good, I'm trying it.
Just don't ask what it is.
Just like in Demolition Man, don't ask what the burger's made out of. Okay, I gotta stop, or I gotta stop, or I won't quit. Babylon 5, Demolition Man later. Oh man!
I think the name is appropriate. On first thought, you would think TKO means technical knockout, and no one was knocked out per se when you think, but it was.
Yeah, very true.
Walker's acceptance in the fighting community was taken care of. It was eliminated. He represented the entire planet, not just the boxing guild, and he won a huge victory for them. Ivanova overcame her inability to accept and to grieve and to realize that her dad wasn't as bad as she thought he was. He just had his own grieving issues and made a mistake. So
Yeah,
in both cases, they did knock it out.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Andre was not only mourning his wife, but was mourning his son. And he was dealing with separation anxiety, I imagine, because Ivanova, or rather Susan, had enlisted in Earth Force. And to him, Earth Force represented something that took his son away. And here's an interesting thing. In one of the conversations that Kozlov and Susan have, I think it's while they're having dinner, he made the comment and everything. She had said or anything. I invited Dad to come here numerous times, and he said humanity had no business amongst the stars unless we could live in peace at home. And I think there's some truth to that. And I think there is some truth in everything in that statement, because here we are, 2020. And the same old resentments, the same old grievances, and even some ones that have been manufactured are dividing us. And there doesn't need to be any bloody division. But because of a random few or a select few who are trying to hold on to their monicum of power, are trying to divide the rest of us. And I think that stinks. And we're having to go back to old media, which is not a bad thing, to see a portrait of a future that could still be, if we can just tell those select few with their microscopic amount of power to go take a flying leap off the nearest bridge.
I have never been one that would say that we need to stop expanding for internal correction, like what Ivanova's father was saying, simply because of, it was just last month we watched the Dragon take off. And if you looked at that ship,
Yes.
It was beautiful. You looked inside, it was absolutely beautiful. It was like sitting inside a going to one of those Apple places, or certain rides on Disneyland. It didn't resemble anything like a spaceship that we've ever known. It was perfectly clean, had touch monitors, nice cool blue lights. Even their spacesuits were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now you have something like that where they're stretching our boundaries. Sometimes that technology can come back and help with the existing problems that we have. We have this false narrative and people know about it. I know there's a COVID, but what they're presenting is not correct. And I know this because I'm a doctor and I read, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's stuck indoors by mandates, and we can still communicate very well because of this expansion of technology. And we can still reach out to people because of what we've gained through these things. And if we were to face it again without the expansion that we've been gaining, without being able to go to the stars with newer and better and safer spaceships, without having cleaner, better vehicles, more efficient ways of having energy, what's the point? What are we saving? We can go around the bad issues and work with them at the same time that we're making everyone else's lives better. We don't put the good people's lives on hold simply to pick up some bad mustard. You bring everybody along as best you can. If they don't want to come along for the ride, that's fine, but don't stop the good people from going further, better, with greater imagination, more successes, and happier lives. You just don't.
Yes.
It's wrong to do that.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you, because, well, there is some truth to what Andrei Ivanova said. At the same time, we do need to expand, because eventually, I thought by now, and this is the dream of a young man. This is the dream of a young ambassador. I figured if I lived to see 2020, which I figured I wouldn't be that old, I might be living in a world that might be on the cusp of something like Babylon 5, or like Star Trek, or maybe, hell, even maybe like Star Wars. And sadly, we're not. We're bickering and fighting and nitpicking and fussing and fuming over things that have been long since settled, but unfortunately haven't been allowed to be settled because
sorry, I jumped through you there. I think we're discussing Susan Ivanova too for the human race. Without forgiveness, we cannot mourn for what's gone, and without mourning, we cannot move on. So we need to forgive each other. And I don't see why we can't have a common goal, that by moving forward, it allows the space to unravel and let some of that past go. So I don't see why we can't go forward.
We can, and
forgiveness.
You said something really crucial with that forgiveness part. Forgiveness is, or mourning as well, is looking at something that has happened in the past and having the imagination that humans have. It allows us to see what was good, what was missed, what was mourned over, and focus on something that we can do better, farther, stronger, and it makes us better. With every mourning, with every loss, with every defeat, with every failure, it gives us the capacity to do that much better and overcome and conquer. It's always been the case.
Yeah, because if you don't mourn, it's just that resentment's going to eat you up inside. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who have either real or feigned animosity or resentment, actually. And I think, unfortunately, there are those out there who are bad actors who are trying to stir the pot just to cause a lot of trouble. And that's unfortunate because it's robbing a lot of people of the ability to see or hope for a better future. There is a line and everything from an animated series and everything. Well, it's a series of animated shorts that's based around the Halo universe. It's called Halo Legends, and Cortana actually narrates it. And she says, "We looked up from the dirt and the mire and the blood, and we looked to the heavens, to the stars." And we realized that this world was full of too many souls. So we aspired to reach for the stars. And I think that's something that really can unite the human race. Not black or white or Asian or whatever. The human race as a whole. Because guess what? In the immortal words of John F. Kennedy, we all inhabit this same small world. We all aspire, we all hope and pray for a better future for our children. We all breathe the same air. And we are all of us mortal. I know I mentioned that in a stream I did a while ago, just recently, but there's truth in it. It's time for us to stop being divided because of some mistakes, although they were grievous mistakes that were done in the past by our forebears. It's time to stop reliving the mistakes of the past. It's time to look forward to the future and what we can do together as a united race.
It's something that we need to get over, and I totally agree with you. But anytime we've had conflict, whether it be like what we have now or what we've had in the past, those conflicts have always, and people, you're alluding at like the slavery and those type of things, those conflicts have always been done by a very, very minute group of people. And it's been so heinous that the guilt spreads to the good people, even though they have never done any wrong. And it spreads to the people who have never had any wrong done to them, although they feel a kinship to it.
Yeah.
Or if we are gonna grow up as an entire species, we have to recognize that and say, stop pointing at fingers at people who are innocent, and stop taking blame for something you never did, and stop associating yourselves with people who are victims when you've never been victimized. Stand on your own feet and stand with other people like you, and look, like you said, no longer at the mud, but look at the stars, because the mud will always be there, but the stars go on forever.
And to use a bit of a cliche, it's time for us to evolve. A wink and a nod to a good friend's book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, fellas. Well, I think we've pontificated and we've broken this episode down fairly well. I don't like to belabor the point, so I think we're going to wrap it up here. And to the chat, to Josh and Rebecca, Momini, welcome, folks. Glad you could be here this afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. I know you're coming in on towards the end, so be sure and catch us on the replay and everything once it becomes available. I do want to thank my guests and everything, my friends, Mounts of Elysium and Adega, for joining me this afternoon. This has been a good episode. This has been a good discussion. I appreciate y'all's input on this. To everyone in the chat, Bionic Belly Button, a long lost friend who isn't so lost anymore. Joshua Rebecca Momini, Max World Entertainment, Trey, our good friend, Stone Loki, number one sci-fi superior hero reviews, and anybody else I may have missed. David G. Sound, thank you all for being here. Just a quick update. This evening at 5:30, I will be on with Let's Talk Star Trek 10 Forward Roundtable discussion with my good friend Nobody Geek Jesse, and we'll be talking about the Doctors of Star Trek. So be sure to tune in for that. And later this weekend, we're going to be doing something a little new and a little different. We're going to be doing a watch party on the ambassadorial wing. And we're going to be kicking this off with a great 90s classic, Tombstone. And that'll be at 7:30 Central Time, so be sure to tune in for that. And, yeah, guys, thank you again for all of you being here. As always, if you haven't done so, share this out with your friends who are fans of Babylon 5. And y'all have a great day. I'll see some of you this afternoon. Oh, and one more other update. This Wednesday night, at 8 p.m. Central, I'll also be on with my other good friend, Kathia Starr. We'll be continuing our review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we'll be covering the episode simply called Angel. So be sure to tune in for that as well. As always, folks, thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a great day. God bless you. And until next time, this is the Ambassador signing off.
Thanks all.